Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of CarnivorousGrama Speaks. This morning, I am very excited and happy to have with me Gerard Looby. Welcome, Gerard.
Hey, thank you for having me. Good morning.
So happy that you could join me this morning. I met Gerard on G and Frederick Brown's Carnivore cruise. And so he and I and one other person were there for the carnivore part of the cruise.
Right.
And, of course, it was their 20th wedding anniversary celebration. So it was really, really awesome. But I had a chance to talk with Gerard about his carnivore lifestyle just a little bit, and I invited him to come because I thought it's so important. So, first of all, Gerard, if you didn't notice, is an African American male. This is a
Yes.
rare thing in the space. I mean, if you think about as the number of people that you have seen in the carnivore space that fit this demographic, it is very rare. And so I was very excited to have an opportunity to bring you on, Gerard, and to talk to you about how you ended up being in the carnivore space and kind of how you're living your lifestyle. How long have you been doing this? So, if you wouldn't mind, I'll just ask you to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, again, I'm Gerard Looby. Professionally, I work for the subway system in New York City. I've been working there for 31 years. Looking forward to retirement next year. Uh, and a background on me, I'm an immigrant to this country. I'm originally from the Caribbean, from Antigua, West Indies. I came up here as a child. I was just made 7 years old. And so even though the US has been my home for so many years now, I remember enough and the upbringing from a different culture. So there's still some odds with how my family values and the values of the US. Okay, that being said, I've always been trying to exercise, trying to be like my older brothers. They were exercising. I was into fitness. I always tried to eat better. I don't know why that was a concern of mine to be healthier or to be healthy per se. It doesn't mean I always ate healthy things. Like most young people, I ate honey buns up here, ate pizza, you know, Jamaican patties, candy. I was eating caramel candies when they were 1 cent. You could buy
Mhm.
like for $1, you had like a whole giant bag of candy, and I ate a lot of that. But I was always very thin on the thin side. Uh, so most people would look at me and say, he could get away with that kind of stuff. He doesn't have to worry. I wish I could be like him. I'm sure people would say that. Everything was flowing fine until I was 14, either 14 or 15, when the puberty hit. My face was destroyed with acne. I
Mm.
went from super clear skin to acne. And of course, back then, we were all told that, you just had to use the alcohol wipes and all these other things on your face. Of course, none of that stuff worked. None of that stuff worked. But fortunately for me, when I became, my early 20s or late teens, the acne, dissipated for the most part. And, I was still pretty thin, but trying to be like everybody else. I was trying to put on weight. So I was overeating, trying to get bigger because, always being thin on the thin side, you want to seem more robust, more of a challenge to somebody else. So I would try to overeat so much and I just wouldn't really gain any weight. So that's my background. And then uh, I'll fast forward to in my 30s. I started training some martial arts with a guy I met named Anthony Falari. He was from New Jersey. He came all the way to Brooklyn, and I met him training in a training group in Brooklyn by actually I forgot the name, the part of Brooklyn, Flatlands area. But we trained there for a while under this teacher named James Kama. Uh, then we decided to switch training to another gentleman. He was from Chicago, and he was going to come up monthly to train us. And then, on the other weeks, we train ourselves. So during this training, I would say maybe a year in or close to a year in, a guy came. He wanted to join our group. So we thought he was like trying to infiltrate our group from our previous training group, like someone that was affiliated with them. But this guy had to be about 6'6", um, at least 270 pounds, but in a way that you would want to look. He was a physical specimen. He was an impressive, imposing guy. And so we were talking, we were interviewing him to see if we were going to let him join our group. So during this talk, somehow it comes up that he says, I eat. I don't know exactly how he said it, but it came up to the fact that he eats raw meat, honey, olive oil, butter, and something else. I forgot. It was something. I don't know if it was spinach. I don't think it was spinach. It was something else that he consumed. And he was like, "This diet, it will help you heal from injuries, and it just works wonders." So now this is coming from me. Whenever I've eaten any meat, that meat was cooked until it was probably overcooked. So for some reason, I wasn't grossed out by what he was saying. And so my friend and me and my friend Anthony, we were there talking to him. We were speaking for at least a couple of hours. And it was pretty chilly that night. And I don't remember exactly what year, but I know it was before the stock market crash, a couple of years before, because this was when day trading just took off and people were like quitting their job and doing day trading as a living. That's what this guy did. He said he did day trading. So, like I said, we were talking for so many hours. So after we spoke, he went on his way, and my friend and I, we went to a Chinese restaurant, and I didn't realize how cold it was till we got in the Chinese restaurant, and then I couldn't stop shivering for the next hour or so. Once I got inside, don't ask me how that happened, but fast forward again, I would say maybe a couple of weeks to a month later, our teacher came up from Chicago. We were training. I was training with a staff bow, which is basically a pole that's about 6 feet long. And we were doing it's not a kata because it's Chinese, but it was a form. And we were practicing techniques, and I didn't have my staff bow in the right spot. And I got hit in the forehead. And then I had a huge hematoma on my forehead. So, with the training finished, I went back. On those training days, I would stay by my friend's apartment. I would sleep over there, so we could because we would train for the entire weekend. So the next day I woke up, of course, I still had the hematoma on my head. And I told my friend Anthony, I said, you know what? This is the perfect time for me to see if what this guy was saying is true. So, of course, the guy said he was eating bison. That's what he was eating bison meat. So, of course, I didn't have access to bison.
You told me that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't have access to bison, so I bought maybe a 6-ounce piece of steak. I opened it up. I did my best to eat it. It was not really appetizing. The honey made it a little, a lot easier. So I would add the honey and the butter, and maybe I got to finish about half of that steak. But the important thing is that about an hour later, maximum 2 hours, I just happened to touch my forehead, And when I touched my forehead, the hematoma was completely gone. And I mean, I was pressing, there was no pain, like
Wow.
the soreness that was there, the tenderness, I should say, that was all gone. And I was like, wow, what this guy said is true. So I'm not sure how long after that, but he did eventually join our group, the gentleman that told me about this way of eating. And he told me where to get the food. I was ordering from this place. It was like the only place I think you could order meat from that would ship it to you, a place called North Star Bison. And I did that for many years. Um, the only thing I did was I didn't know the term brine before, but I would I would cut up the meat and I would leave it in the fridge so that it could air out and some of the water could come out of the meat. And basically, when you kind of do it like that, it has a texture of being cooked,
Mm.
but it is still raw, of course. And for many years, I bought huge buckets of honey. I would portion out a certain portion, of the honey and the butter. I didn't really use the olive oil. I really didn't like the olive oil. So for many years, it was raw cheese. I did raw cheese, butter, the honey, and the bison for at least, I would say, about 8 years.
Wow. So can you
About eight
remind
years.
me what year it was when you started that again?
It was somewhere in a year, somewhere around 2006, because I know it
Okay.
was quite a while before the stock market crash.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Wow.
from 2006, I would say until about 2014, I ate. This is the way I ate, and of
Mhm.
course, my family knew. My wife knew what I ate, um, but people at work, eventually over time, a few people at work, I told them that's how I ate. One of the guys named Lonnie, he was like, "You eating the tiger diet,"
Right.
But I I never really felt bad. It wasn't. I didn't really have any ailments that I was trying to fix. But what I would say, eating the with the honey and the butter and the lean meat didn't really change my physique.
Mm.
I still had a midsection that so I wanted to recompose to show the to show the six pack that never really materialized. So in that aspect, it didn't really change how I looked. I pretty much still looked the same. I kind of felt the same because I never really had any serious health issues besides a couple of injuries that to this day don't bother me. Uh,
Mm. So what kept you on it? Like, what was your big why for being on a raw meat diet? Was there something that, I mean, obviously it wasn't because you were sick and it wasn't because you were fat, but was there something that made you stay on it for 8 years?
I can't say anything specifically, but it must have made me feel when I would say I wasn't strict
Mm-hmm.
because when we trained, like when the teacher was there the day before he left, or one of those days we would go out to eat. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to eat only meat. I was eating just the same stuff as everybody else, whether it was um, a rack of ribs with the sauce on it and some cheesecake after the dinner. So I was
Mm-hmm.
still eating other things, but for the most part, when I was home, I would pretty predominantly eat the diet I just described. But I wasn't beholden to it in the sense
Mm-hmm.
of the way I eat now,
Yeah.
where I don't eat anything else, no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just popping this up. This is Frederick. So G and Frederick are in the chat. Hey, you guys.
Hey, hi guys, how you
Um,
doing?
and Frederick is saying that the honey was the reason why you didn't see your six pack.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. It probably is. you know, and
Probably. Hmm.
I still have a bucket that I haven't finished. That's
Oh my
because I was
gosh, I can
buying like a
imagine.
5 gallon bucket of honey.
Oh,
Yeah, or so I was getting the good
wild.
stuff, the raw, wild, the wild stuff. So I wasn't going to like the supermarket and getting it, but it was
Yeah.
it was an experience, and it I would say, pretty much all this when I was doing that also, I was eating pretty much one meal a day. I was eating a huge meal in the morning, and that's how I ate like for all of those years. And then, you know, what changed, I went to the doctor, and this is when A1C readings started coming about. They were like, yeah, your
Mhm.
A1C is 5.2 or 5.4, something like that.
Right.
And I'm trying to figure, even though I didn't really think much about the honey and the butter, but I'm like, as much as I do and as active as I am, I don't really imagine, that just never really sat right with me that I'm so close to pre-diabetes, where, a couple more points and I was there. So for uh, unknown reason, besides that, for maybe about 6 months or so, I switched to maybe I said 2014, maybe it was like 2015.
Okay.
I think it was like 2015. For a couple of months, I went on just overnight switch to eating. I had a health food store right by my job, bought a bunch of cashews, peanuts, almonds. What else did I buy? It was something else. I still was eating the raw cheese. Um, and I just ate nothing, believe it or not, nothing but the nuts, the cheese, and probably some honey too for a few months, like some months
Wow.
straight. And then I said, this is not really working for me. I mean, I didn't feel bad per se, but then I switched to eating keto.
Okay.
So from there, I was doing keto, a lot of broccoli, a lot of cauliflower.
Yeah.
Um, and for some reason, I was able to eat it. I'm not the biggest veggie fan per se. I always did love meat. Um, growing up, I ate a lot of oxtail, a lot of
Oh yeah.
saltfish, a lot of goat meat, you
Hmm.
know, but I shouldn't say a lot, but that was pretty often we ate that way. Because, oxtail was a pretty cheap meat back in the days. Now oxtail is more expensive than ribeyes.
Right.
So,
It is.
oxtail was very low priced meat, and it's very tasty. And
Yes, it is.
but anyway, yeah. So, I switched to keto, so I was eating, and stopped buying the bison, of course, and I started getting some steaks from Whole Foods, and I was doing the same thing. I would still pretty much, well, actually, I was getting Whole Food steaks before I stopped carnivore. I mean,
Oh,
eating the raw meat before.
okay.
So
Hmm.
I was still getting the steaks, except now I was cooking them. Um, and then, I was doing it, a lot of high fat stuff. And I guess that what made the vegetables palatable. And
Yeah.
then time was going by, and in 2017, I saw, of course, the infamous podcast with Sean Baker and Joe Rogan.
Yep.
And I'm not sure who mentioned if it was in that podcast or another podcast. They mentioned oxalates,
Yep.
and they were saying how prevalent these things are in the greens and stuff. And I know it was July of 2017, because I said, you know what? I'm going to stop eating all the vegetables, and I'm going to see when I go get my doctor, my physical. I'm going to see, do I see oxalates? I'm going to see if this is true. So cold turkey, I threw all the spinach and broccoli or whatever I had bought. I just dumped them. Um, and just was eating meat and
Mm.
cheese and, you know, any animal stuff. I did that for at least 30 days, probably closer to 2 months. I went, I got my physical, my blood work came back, and it said it was oxalates in my urine. So I
Wow.
said, you know what? This stuff is they're not lying.
Mm-hmm.
So then that's when I've was been eating carnivore as we know it today,
Since
when
2017.
since 2017. Yes.
That is awesome. So how is your, did you say that your A1C, you were like having some issue there with your
Yeah,
A1C?
it was still for that year and the years after, it was like 5.5,
Okay, so not
5.6,
extremely high, but
5.4. So it was
even
still
up,
in that
even
range,
up.
and it still didn't sit right with me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking, okay, the people know what they're talking about. Um, but with just to wrap that up, so I'm gonna like fast forward a little bit to now.
Okay.
So for the last, I would say from 2022 to this year, 2024, my A1C has been saying 5.8. So my doctor's telling me how I'm pre-diabetic. I'm like, this is impossible. I said, you know, why don't you prescribe me a CGM? I know I'll have to pay for it. The insurance won't pay. But she refused. She was like, oh, okay, an endocrinologist has to do it. I got an appointment with the endocrinologist. They refused as well to give me a prescription, telling me I could just do the finger pricks. And I wasn't really interested in pricking my finger
Mm-hmm.
like that because I did that before for the keto, checking ketones and all that. So
Yeah.
that wasn't really a thing. But this year, I said, you know, I was waiting for the Stello to come out. I said,
Mm-hmm.
okay, now I don't have to wait for a doctor. I'm going to get this. So I'm
Right.
waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and it never came out. So I said, I just buckled down. I bought some more strips for my Keto Mojo, and I started testing my blood glucose.
Mm-hmm.
Now, meanwhile, on my physical, the fasting glucose was 76.
Hmm.
And of course, it said the A1C was 5.8.
Right.
So again, I'm telling the doctor, this is not right. So she's like, this is the number. This is what it says.
Right.
So I got the strips. I was testing my glucose every day. So of all the days I did the finger prick, which was just short of 4 weeks, my
Okay.
average glucose was 86. Now I tested my glucose when I woke up, midday, and before bed. So those three readings, I was averaging 86.
Okay.
Thankfully, the Stello came out, so I've had that probably for 3 weeks or 2 weeks, something like that. But with the
Mm-hmm.
Stello, it's telling me my average glucose is 81.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it would act the average would actually be lower than that, but for some reason it doesn't tell you the reading below 70. It will just say below 70. So pretty much when I'm
Right.
sleeping, the
Yes.
entire time I'm sleeping, it says below 70. So the
Okay.
average would probably be a little lower if it was able to get all of those readings. So
Right.
now I know for sure that I'm not 5.8. I mean, I've heard it, but I've seen it, I've tested it for
Mm-hmm.
myself. That way others maybe could do the same. I wish there was some kind of study we can all volunteer for and give these readings, you know, because the readings don't lie. They could take the readings from the CGMs.
Right. I'm trying to think if, I was thinking about whether one of these doctors is doing something with that, like Rivero or Dr. Barry. I'm not sure. I would have to like do a little bit of research to see are they doing something like that to try to. I know that, when you're on a meat-based way of eating a carnivore diet, those lab test results can be skewed just by the fact that you're not eating a standard American diet, which all of our lab tests are based on those metrics. So,
Right.
so I find that fascinating, but I think somebody is doing one of those things. I'm not sure if it's Rivero. that's doing it, but I'll have to do a little digging on that and see if I can find out and put it in the show notes. So, so from your in your with your transition from a raw carnivore diet to a standard, I guess I'll call it carnivore diet, what are you eating now?
Well, I initially started out eating a lot of ground beef, uh,
Hmm.
ground beef, a lot of eggs. Initially, I was frying them, but now lately I'll get a. I'm really a fan of slow cooked meat, whether it's the chuck roast, chuck steak. Um, what's another one I like? It looks like a giant oxtail, shank,
Oh, beef shank, yeah.
beef shank. And I think the flavor in the slow cooked meats is fantastic. And then you get to cook out most of the water, so you're left with all the fat and
Hmm.
the meat, and it's wonderful. So pretty much today, that's how I'm eating. Still ground beef, sometimes it's chuck, or any meat. Doesn't really matter. You'd be surprised. Even like the chuck, even the roasts, they'll have like a fat cap on them. So when you cook
Hmm.
them down, all the collagen and everything is there. The things that most people would say, "Oh, I'm going to get away from that. I'm going to eat the lean meat." I eat all of that. It's very tasty. And I
Yes.
mostly do boiled eggs with the buttermilk I was describing to you. I have that with my ground beef and with the eggs in the morning. So my meals are much smaller now than before, because before I think I was eating more lean. So I was probably eating up to 3 pounds of meat, and still, I was always a person that could eat a lot of food. And I don't think that was in my best interest to be eating that much meat. First off, it's expensive, and I don't think it was necessary. So lately now I really put a focus on getting more fat in, and it's definitely, I think it's a better option. It's just everything is better. Um, it's helped my physique. My physique really took off when I've started making sure that I'm getting some kind of fat, more than I was getting before in my diet.
This is so counterintuitive, like that eating more fat. So for the month of September, I've been trying for a couple of months to try to see like how do I initiate weight loss mode. So I did a couple of months of adding like lean days and forced intermittent fasting type of thing. It worked a little bit, but this month I'm doing like the stick of butter a day challenge.
Okay.
'Cause I'm like, okay, so maybe it's the stick of butter that will make your pants fall off,
Yes. Yes.
like
I'm
Bob Briggs
familiar.
used to say back in the
Yes.
day, 10 years ago,
Yes.
so but it's very interesting and fascinating that you're saying that when you incorporated higher fat, your physique, that you said that you were looking, trying to get your six pack to show and stuff like that, that your physique actually changed with the higher fat.
Yes. And my midsection definitely started shrinking. And now to the point, like according to the scale, I hover between 11% and anywhere between 10.8 to 12% body fat, according to the scale, what it says. So even though I weigh less, I'm pretty much weighing what I weighed in junior high school.
What? Wow.
And but I have definitely, I'm more physically fit. And I wasn't in bad shape when I was in junior high school. Like I said, I was always thin, but I have more muscle now, in my mid 50s than I did when I was 15 or 14, whatever that age was.
Mhm.
Because even though I was thin, I had that midsection. It didn't really show in clothes, but of course, when I take off my shirt, I saw it. That that's the important person is me, and it always bothered me. But I just thought it was the genetics. It's nothing I could change. No matter how I ate, it was just there. And I didn't really have weight to lose, but I would say uh, in 1998, I decided I'm going to stop overeating to try and be big. I said, I'm just going to be the natural weight, whatever it is I'm supposed to be, that's what I'm going to be. And I was 198 pounds at that time.
Mm.
And when I just started eating what was necessary, I went down to maybe about 170. And now I went from there to once I was doing the carnivore, and I'm not, again, I got past that stage of overeating. I didn't really gain weight, even though I was eating all that amount of meat and cheese and all this other stuff. But once I started eating more fat, and I don't eat that much fat because if I am not a person that can eat copious amounts. I'll be running to the bathroom, but I definitely eat a lot more fat than I used to.
Yeah.
And it has cut down the meat portion. I'm still satisfied. And it's my weight has now dropped into the 150s. It is what it is. And but like I said, I have a lot. My lean mass is
Mm-hmm.
more than what it was when I was heavier. So I'm not. I didn't lose too much muscle, I guess. So
Mm-hmm.
and I have still have my strength. Um, I work out, but the physique is not really from the workout. It's
Okay. Mm-hmm.
because of the way I eat. I work out because I like to work out.
Yeah, that's good. Well,
Yeah.
that is awesome. So, we talked a little bit about that. So you talked about your typical day of eating. So, yeah, I think you were saying to me when we met that like when you were, was it raw carnivore that you were eating so much meat because it was lean that you had to
Yes.
eat a lot? Yeah. And
Yeah.
so
I,
now
I
you're,
I I was eating a lot. I mean, I was eating a lot, and because I didn't really know better. I'm sure it has some kind of fat in there, but it was lean. And I don't know if you ever saw bison meat, but bison
mhm,
meat kind of looks purple. It doesn't look like
mhm.
beef. It has a different hue. Maybe some grass fed. I see sometimes grass fed meat gets closer
Yeah.
to what bison looks like, but
Mhm.
yeah, bison is very lean. It's leaner than any roast that
Wow.
you can buy. But I guess because I wasn't cooking it, it didn't really um, it never got so it wasn't tough. Like I said, once you dry it out, basically aging it a bit
Mhm.
for a few days, when you cut it, it had the texture of like a meat that you seared, minus or any liquid coming out, because most of the liquid drained out from the days of it
Sitting.
aging in the fridge.
Interesting.
Yeah, and of
So,
course it was. You can imagine I'm buying from and even though it was much more economical in those days compared to now,
yeah.
but it was expensive. And I'm shipping this stuff from Wisconsin. They had this overnight thing from FedEx. They would send it with dry ice, and I think I was buying like every couple of weeks, maybe like 25 pounds, something like that. So it was maybe close to a couple $100, like per shipment. I don't remember how much it was, but it was so long ago. But that's what I did for many years, and that was like pretty much the only place you can order that I knew of that would ship you meat.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
so were you getting like steaks, roasts, ground?
No. When you got that, you were getting the meat where they were cutting it into packages. So when you took it out, sometimes you would get like a solid piece where you can just cut it up. At other
Mhm.
times, there would be this, I don't know what it is that's in between the meat that you would have to cut off because you can't really eat that.
Oh, the gristle
Like you
part.
would have to cook, you would have to cook that. And since I wasn't cooking it, I would have to get a sharp knife and cut all that stuff. It was very slippery. So I guess it's
Mm.
whatever allows the muscles to run past each other. So it encased the
Oh,
muscles. Sometimes,
mm.
they're trying to maximize their yield when they're
Mhm.
selling and stuff. So the nice cuts that you see in the supermarket. Like, no, this was like you got a certain poundage, and I'm sure maybe somebody that orders more got the better cuts than what I got.
Mm.
You know,
Mhm.
more somebody more established with them. And
Mhm.
it's funny, one quick funny story from that. The lady that owned the place, for some reason, I called him. I don't remember exactly why, but she was like, "Hey, Gerard, some of these guys that order this meat like you eat it raw." Of course, I didn't confess to her that I was doing the same thing.
Right. Right, right, right.
But
Wow.
she was very familiar with this group, so I guess they set up some kind of co-op with them because from that gentleman I was speaking of earlier is where I got the to know where to get the meat from that he was getting.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's so interesting. I'm just sitting here thinking about, eating raw meat and how that doesn't seem very how long did it take you to, like, be okay with the fact that you were eating it raw?
Well, the fact of eating it raw is once I got over the yuck factor, I'd call it, because that
Mhm.
was totally foreign to me from
Yeah.
previous. Like I said, do it definitely aging it definitely made it easier. It wasn't really any fat on there, so it wasn't really any fat to get over. Once I cut off the times that they had that other stuff on top of the meat that I cut off, once it pretty much had a texture of it had a tender texture of meat. Of course, it didn't have the taste, and I wasn't salting it or anything. I guess
Okay.
just whatever the butter and the honey flavor put it, added to it. That's what I ate, and it's just what I did. And then once I ate for the morning, I didn't eat again until the next day. So I wasn't really thinking about food per se that much, which was, I
Yeah.
guess, was a good thing. But
Were
it
you
was
purposely
definitely a yuck
restricting
factor.
or, like, you said or you just once you ate in the morning, you just did not get hungry till tomorrow?
I would like to believe that I just didn't get hungry, but which is probably m- true because of the amount I was eating.
Mhm.
But then it's the other fact. It wasn't like I was eating this because this was like so yummy. And
Right. Oh,
besides the cheese and the butter and the honey, I wouldn't say that the meat was tasty and be like, oh, I can't wait until I eat again. But I was just set in my dietary pattern. This is what I ate. I did feel good and I was satisfied and I didn't have to, I really didn't think about food per se. Once I ate, I was good.
what is your eating pattern like today? Are you eating once a day, more than once a day?
No, today I'm eating in the morning I have eggs and then whenever I get hungry, I'll have some ground beef that I put in a container. I usually take to work or if I'm not at work. Whenever I try to wait until I'm hungry, if I'm not hungry by 6 p.m., I'll eat so that I'm not eating too late.
Mhm.
And pretty much that works. And then for when I'm at work, like usually after breakfast, maybe an hour or two later, I start drinking a whole bunch of water. And once I leave home, I'm not really drinking any water because I have filtered water. I really don't want to drink the water at work. I don't want to drink from a plastic bottle if I can avoid it. If I'm
Yes.
thirsty, I'll drink it. But,
Yeah.
and then so once I eat, I'm good. And since I almost forgot, I don't want to forget again. What I noticed the difference between eating the lean meat and eating a more fatty consistency of food, more incorporated with fat. I would have to say there's not really dry mouth, but my tongue would definitely feel dry from eating a lot of the
Mhm.
protein. And now that I'm eating more fat and less protein in the sense of the quantity of the protein that you can count, that's going to
Yep.
help build your body.
Mhm.
My mouth definitely feels more moisturized. Like I don't have to chew gum. I don't have to drink to say, oh, my mouth feels dry. I feel moisturized, and I know for sure. I'm thinking when you have dry mouth, I don't think your breath smells too nice,
Right.
but with it feeling moisturized, like that's not, it's a non-issue. It's
Mhm.
definitely uh, an improvement, and I think it's probably my body telling me that I'm in a better space. I have a better uh, grasp of how much
Right.
protein, fat, and water I need, to keep
That's
me
so
going.
interesting. That's the first time I've heard anybody say that maybe dry mouth or dry tongue has been impacted by their diet. But there's so many things, like there's so many changes that come along with viewing this type of a lifestyle that it's just
Yeah.
incredible the changes that
Yes.
happen.
Yes. Yes.
Frederick was saying that you got rid of your subcutaneous fat.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it's still. I am 98 or 99% there. Like all of the fat that used to be over my kidneys, like that is almost all gone. Like it's a different physique. I'm like, who
Yeah.
is this guy? But I'm not complaining. I'm
Right.
not complaining, but it's really what I wanted. I just had the genetics that I hold the majority of my body fat on my stomach and on
Mhm.
my back over my kidneys. And
Yep.
it's a wonderful thing. It's the body recomposition is definitely from the way I'm eating, not from any exercise. I'm not doing any stomach exercise.
Mhm.
I'm sure the exercise plays a part in my
Yeah.
fitness, but
Right.
I was exercising before, and the stomach just it would go down, but it just never. It would just get a little smaller, but still had the same look. And
Yeah.
now it's definitely a different look that I'm
Very
enjoying.
interesting.
It's
That
wonderful.
is awesome. So have you faced any challenges like with your carnivore lifestyle? Have you had any struggles or anything like that?
Not per se, because I do what works for me. I don't really worry about what others think. I'm trying to help others. My children, especially my younger daughter, she's definitely not interested. She is more of the junk food person between her and
Mhm.
my son. My son, he's junk food too, but he would more so if it was just me and him, he would eat what I give him. Not saying that he wouldn't have junk food or wouldn't have interest in getting the McDonald's or Chipotle, whatever it is,
Right.
but he definitely has less of the junk food. My daughter would rather not really eat that much meat. She would
Oh,
rather eat
yeah.
more bread and pasta and
I
those kind of
understand.
things. Yeah, if she's eating meat, it's a Big Mac.
Wow. Yeah, I do understand, I have, 4 grown kids myself and 11 grandkids, and it's, very challenging, like, I'm constantly talking to them. Well, they do eat more meat now. I will say they all eat more meat than they used to eat before I went on carnivore, but,
Right.
they have yet to actually convert over to a carnivore way of eating.
Yeah, yeah, it's a mind shift.
Mhm.
I've told people at work, only one person kind of listened to me, and he was looking fantastic when he's a younger guy, but he
Mhm.
was looking fantastic. Like you couldn't deny that this guy looked great.
Wow.
But of course, he's still in that age where he wants to be that that physique, want to be big and strong with the small
Mm.
stomach, with the small waist,
Mhm.
I should say. So he was kind of he's few inches taller than me, so he was kind of not dismayed, but he was trying to hold on to his weight. He didn't want to really
Okay.
lose too much weight per se,
Mhm.
but so he still looks great, but you could see that he's not as strict. He was more like a keto. He was eating some avocado and some other stuff, but
Mhm.
he ate a lot of meat, and you couldn't deny that this guy looked fantastic, and he felt great too.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah,
So I
but
think
pretty
that's the
much
thing is
everybody
that
else kind of did.
the inflammation comes back,
Yes,
that inflammation, it just comes back and you can see it.
Yeah, but he was in pretty good shape to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Physically, he didn't really have, and I don't think he had any health issues. He was trying to come over. So it was more of an aesthetic thing for him.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but me, really, I didn't really have any physical things to overcome per se. But one thing I do have, and I've had since I was about 10 or 9, I did not know until I was 26 because at 10 years old, I used to walk on top of a fence. I would like balance and tightrope walk across a fence.
Mm.
This day I fell. I fell on a hedge and I severely damaged my hip. Like I hit my hip hard, so
Oh,
hard that when I fell to the ground off of the hedge, I couldn't walk for about 20 minutes.
oh my
I
goodness.
had to drag myself to a short stairs. I pulled myself up to sit down. And okay, as time went, I was able to walk and I was go, but I didn't realize that I had a permanent damage.
Mm.
And so, how I found out, I went to a chiropractor when I was 26 or 25, and he took an X-ray, and he told me, in your right hip, you have zero cartilage.
Oh my
He said you
goodness.
have zero cartilage in your hip, and the only uh, the only way I noticed I did know something was wrong was if I sat for long periods of time in a car, it would kind of get like achy, but I just thought
Mm.
it was just for the fact of sitting in the same position.
Right.
But once I knew that I had this injury, thankfully, on a day to day walking and stuff, I didn't really feel anything. But I didn't feel it when I was running either. But people would always say, well, you run kind of funny. I guess I'm doing it because that's how since 10, I've been doing it. But people would say, you can run kind of like you're favoring one side. So that told me that, it is affecting me, but
Yes.
I didn't really know how. So, and I would say from, like I mentioned to you when I met you, that I'm doing like the sprinting 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
So getting into that groove, starting with the exercises and getting in there, I definitely felt the achiness in my hip, I guess, until it got stronger or my body got stronger to pretty much I'm back to how I was before. It's really a non-issue at this point. I hope it stays that
Wow.
way for the rest of my life,
Great.
you know.
Yeah.
So I don't imagine since it came back, I don't imagine that I've grown any cartilage there. But however it's going, I'm I don't have any pain, which is good.
That's
So
fantastic.
yeah.
That is fantastic. So I want to just ask you, for those that may be considering, so you've been doing this for a long time in
Yes.
various ways. If for somebody that's considering doing a transition to a carnivore lifestyle or even a raw carnivore diet, do you have any advice for them?
I would say if you're trying to recover from any physical, like, disabled, something that you're weak, your leg hurts or something, definitely eat the meat, salt, and the water. It works. It really will cause your body, it would allow your body to heal. It allows us to have that superpower. I watched the documentaries on lions and stuff, the African stuff
Mm-hmm.
over the years. And one of the superpowers lions are known to have is they heal from severe injuries. And it's obviously because of how they're eating when they're able to get that good meat. And we can heal the same way. A lot of people don't like to be put in a box and say, oh, I'm only eating meat. They want to still eat the other stuff, which is okay if that's what they want to do. But if you want to heal a physical injury, or any part of your body that's physical, whether it's your stomach, it's going to heal eating this way. And I would encourage anyone to give it a shot. You don't have to be raw. You can, like I said, I think the meat is a little better when you age it and then you sear it. So maybe it's what you would consider, what do you call that kind of rare or medium rare?
Yeah, oh, medium rare.
You know,
Hmm.
you eat it that way. It definitely will cause your body to heal. Uh,
Yeah.
I've seen it on too many occasions um, in my case. Again, when I was about 15 or 16, I severely sprained my ankle. Another time that I didn't go to the doctor, and I really should have.
Hmm.
Uh, my ankle was so badly sprained that I could not let my foot hang. I could not sit where my foot was hanging because it would feel like it was going to dislocate, like my ankle joint. And I had that for many years that it was that bad. And, like I'll give you an example of how it would affect me. When I was younger, we went to the pool a lot during the summer and diving off the diving board. You spring and then you go. I would say after about 5 or 6 times, I wasn't able to spring off the diving board anymore. My ankle just couldn't
Oh,
take it.
wow.
It didn't hurt, but I just didn't have the strength to do it. And that's another thing that the sprinting has helped to
Yeah.
make my ankle stronger because I definitely felt that injury when I started taking the sprinting, which I've been doing about 6 months now. So I would say it took about 3 months or so for my ankle that I can feel the progression of my ankle going through a healing process, which wasn't fun, but I persevered because I know this is what's going to make me stronger. If it's obviously telling me it's not strong enough to do this, which is normal
Right.
stuff. I wasn't doing anything crazy. This is normal things,
Mm-hmm.
but to a more intense level. So, for sure, eating this way will allow your body to heal.
It's so interesting because what you're saying is, I mean, it's not just something that happened yesterday. I mean, you talked about the fact that you had the hematoma on your head from getting hit, from, having the bow hit you in the head.
Right.
And that, cleared up in record time. But you're talking
Yes.
about things that have been issues in your body for many years, like since you were a kid,
Yes.
recovering from those kinds of things, which is absolutely incredible. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, it's wonderful. There's I mean, and I enjoy. It's not like I'm doing it just because, okay, I said I want to be healthy. At this point, I'm eating the things that I enjoy eating. Um,
Yes.
I guess eventually I'm gonna switch to a different way. Maybe I'll cook my eggs in a different way, or there'll be times that I just eat only meat and I really don't eat eggs.
Mhm.
But I feel great. That's what the thing is. It's like I feel fantastic. Um, and one of the few benefits I can ascertain that I've had um, is when I get a cold, no matter how bad this cold is, no matter how much my nose is running, my nose never gets stuffy anymore. It never gets stuffy. I used to have where the springtime and when the pollen was there, I
Seasonal
didn't have
allergies.
severe allergies, but it would bother
Mm.
me. It would make my nose stuffy.
Yeah.
I don't have that. I don't have those issues anymore.
I think
I
that's a
remember,
great benefit.
yeah, as a kid, you have a cold and you're breathing through your mouth. You wake up, your throat is on fire because it's so
Yeah.
dry. I
Yes.
don't have those. And I don't take any meds. I don't take any medicine. So it's wonderful. My blood pressure is actually low, kind of. Normally, when I check it, it's maybe like 100 over 60 something, or
Oh, wow.
yeah, even at the doctor's office this year, when they checked it, it was like really low, like the readings I get at home.
Mm.
And
Nice.
so it definitely is a healthy way to live. The only thing, I mean, some people might be scared.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that get a high LDL. from eating this way with the higher
Mm-hmm.
fat, but
Yeah.
it doesn't bother me. Like when I was eating, excuse me, when I was eating previously in 1999, I stopped eating meat. And the reason I did that was because I didn't like the quality of the meat. Silly me, all I had to do was go to a better store to get better meat. But I didn't think of that. So instead of eating McDonald's and chicken nuggets and all of these things, I just decided to stop eating meat. I actually did that for 5 years. And then I switched back, in
Good for
2004,
you.
2003. Because, I mean, like I said, it didn't really make me feel bad, but it was a lot of, like every other vegan talks about, there's a lot of flatulence going on when you eat that way.
Yes.
It's not pretty.
Wow.
It's not pretty.
Oh my God. It's
But yeah,
hilarious.
so I've been through the gamut of trying to do things that improve my health.
Yes.
And by far, once I switched to predominantly meat in the early 2000 area, I haven't looked back. I haven't looked back, even though I really didn't know it was a thing back then.
Right.
And that because I really looked at it as a way to heal an injury or when you need that extra boost. I think
Hmm.
that was my mindset more so than if I ate this way all the time, it would improve things that I didn't even really know about.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I really wasn't strict per se that no matter what, this is the way I'm eating. But for sure, since 2017, this is the way I eat. The only way I'm going to eat something else is if there's no other food.
Right. Yep. I agree. Absolutely do. I want to just touch on one more thing and then we're going to
Mhm.
be out of time. But I met you on the Carnivore cruise. So
Yes.
I just want to talk about the power of community. And, what is your take on, you know, what does it mean to you? So, how'd you end up on the Carnivore cruise?
Well, I ever since I started, I heard a video from Homestead How, and then of course I'm the biggest cheerleader. Even though I was seeing people who didn't really look like me, I was still happy that more people were getting exposed to this and discovering how wonderfully healing this way of eating is. And then, time went, and then I saw uh, Hanging with the Browns. I saw, your channel, seen some other channels, but, even the smaller people, I would try to encourage them, eat this way, don't give up, give it the days. You can, um, You can do it. Yeah, and other people, carnivore, kip, and all these other. I would try to encourage everybody.
Yes.
Some people they can't wrap their mind around that you can eat and then live your life. It's like instead of eating being your life, you get to nourish yourself and live your life, doing
Right.
the things that you love. That's what I really want people to really get from this community. And some people need more community than others. I'm glad that, for the majority of the time, even though I was on my own, nobody else, I never really met anybody else, doing it with me besides that guy. And it's not like we were friends,
Hmm.
or once we stopped training together, that was it. And so I was basically on my own. Nobody in my family eats this way. None of my people in my circle eat this way. So it was definitely a pleasure to meet you, G, Fred, your husband. It, it, I just like to encourage, and then I'm seeing more and more people from our community that are realizing that this is a way to eat this, and the doctors. And I'm sorry, I hope I don't go over the time, but
No,
I
you're
wanted to
fine.
tell you
Absolutely. Keep going.
the story of why I lost trust in doctors.
Mm.
Back in 2012, uh, my second child was due to be born sometime that year. For unfortunately, my wife she had a trouble with thrombosis and she didn't know. So I hope if you can mention to other women out there, she knew she had an issue because she couldn't take birth. When she took birth control pills, she would have a lot of clotting um,
Mm.
during her cycle. So, and she always mentioned that whenever she gave blood, they would people would remark about how thick her blood was.
Mm.
So she was definitely one of those people that a birth control pill could give her a, a stroke because of a blood clot. So, unbeknownst to her, this is something that we should have addressed when she got pregnant. So, because of that, blood clots filled the placenta. The baby wasn't growing uh, as it should, and it didn't. It took a while for them to notice. So, all that being said, the reason I was really upset with doctors is that we're going to an obstetrician or whatever the lady is called that deals with pregnant women,
Hmm.
and this is what she does for a living. All day, she sees pregnant women. This is what she does for a living.
Yeah.
And when they're taking the pictures of the fetus and measuring it and checking all these things, she didn't notice that the fetus wasn't as lively as it should have. And at that time, I didn't know either. This is the first
Right.
time, even though I had an older daughter, I didn't go with her mother to these type of appointments. So I didn't know what it was like. So once, okay, we had the traumatic experience, the pregnancy had to end. And when my wife ended up getting pregnant again, that fetus was all over the place. And I was like, if this doctor that sees babies for a living cannot see the difference, and I can see the difference between the two, I said, I will never, ever listen to what a doctor says because they're just going through the motions. They're not
Mm.
really, they may think that they're really taking part, but they're not taking part in what's going on. So if I, the layman, could see the difference between the two fetuses,
Hmm.
and the doctor could just sit there and not say, something is wrong. This fetuses usually move more than this. Something may be
Hmm.
wrong. It took my wife going to a specialist for high blood pressure that we went to an appointment and I was thinking, okay, we're going to go home after this appointment. But she went to this appointment. The lady was wrapping up and saying, yeah, we're going to do this and that. I'm thinking, okay, we're going to leave and go home. She's like, no, going home. You got to go to the emergency room.
Oh, wow.
So she had to go to the emergency room. And then that's where the decision had to be made if we're going to try to, um, because her blood pressure was some kind of crazy number, that it was some extremely high number.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, the the options were not in the favor of trying to go on with the pregnancy because it's
Oh,
basically
yeah.
it would have came to a point where it would have to be emergency. They slice you open like if you're an animal. And I said I would rather try again because I
Yeah.
believe what the Bible says that when the babies have that free pass, they go where we're all trying to go. They get that free pass straight there. So I had that um, comfort to know that God
Yeah.
takes care of his children.
That's right. That's all right.
So so that gave me a little bit of comfort, but that still was a hard decision
Yeah,
to make.
absolutely.
And
This is so traumatic, and what the Browns are saying here, this is the thing is that it says our bodies give us so many signs. And honestly, what you're saying is so powerful because you are your own best health advocate. You know when your body feels good. You know your own body better than the doctor does. And a lot of times we think of the doctor as that doctor is the expert. And yes, they do have training, they do have expertise, but your body is yours.
Yes.
And so we need to be our own health advocates, and making sure that we're, you know, you got to do a little bit of studying for yourself, a little bit of understanding for yourself what's going on, um, with your body, and advocate for your own self. And here,
Yes.
G is saying people think because a man doesn't carry the baby that they don't care. Gerard, you are the best, and I agree. I agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's it's a hard thing, you know. It's
Yes.
a very, very hard thing to make that choice, and, you know, my heart goes out to you and to your wife, and having to had to make that choice because it's so hard.
Yes.
So, be your own health advocate, folks. So,
Yes.
anything else that's on your heart that you wanna share that you didn't get an opportunity to say yet? Just wanna give you the final words here.
No, I would just say that, you know, all of your channel, G's channel, and Fred's channel, these other channels, I follow, I listen. I like to hear people experiencing. You never get tired of hearing someone saying they got healthier, that they feel better. And for those that are like me who have the high LDL, I'll just mention, I mean, my doctor thought I was going to die the next, like in an instant when she saw my total LDL was almost 600. And I said, I feel fantastic. There's nothing I'm going to change. I'm not going to take any statin. Oh, and I
Mhm.
got, after that appointment, I got a coronary calcium score. Of course, it was 0. And that's why I sent you that paperwork with my blood work. Like, we don't need to chase particular numbers per se. As long as you feel good, that's what counts. According to the paperwork I sent you, I'm insulin resistant. But meanwhile, it says I have a fasting glucose of 70 something and a fasting insulin of 1.7. I'm like, if that's not if that's not the opposite of insulin resistant, I don't know what is. So, but according to their HOMA IR or light LPIR score, I'm 85 out of 100 insulin resistant.
Mhm.
So it's definitely okay to trust how you feel. I don't know how people think that if you feel good today, how they're saying you're not going to feel good in 10 years. When you go to the doctor, they say, "How do you feel?" It's not, "I feel good now." The doctor doesn't say, "Well, you may feel bad next week." They listen to what you're saying or what's your pain. Is it a
Mhm.
what is it 1 to 10? It's a 2. Like you know how you feel. I would say trust it, eat this way, whether it's you eat some plants or you eat some whatever it is you want to eat, as long as you're feeling good, keep doing that. And I would say don't chase a number on a scale. Definitely track your body composition. And I would encourage those who want to get the best body composition to incorporate some type of physical training, whether it's walking, whatever it is that challenges you. Do something. It's good to move around, but do something that challenges your physical capabilities from time to time.
Awesome. Well, you guys, this has been Gerard Looby. This is his very first interview in the carnivore space. And so I just really appreciate you coming on, Gerard. It was so nice to meet you and your daughter, Kayla. I just love her. She's such a sweetheart. I'm going to make sure that I put her information in the description box below. So Kayla is a cake baker. Now, we don't eat cake, but people out here do. So
Yes.
support her efforts, and she's doing such a great job. She's like YouTube, TikTok famous.
Yes. Yes. And I would say, I mean, she has come a long way. Like the work that she does is fantastic.
It is. Yeah.
Even though in the beginning I was having that cake on my birthday,
Ooh.
early on, but since 2017, I haven't
Yeah.
really indulged in that. But her work is definitely good. It's pleasing to the eye,
Yes.
tastes great. So for people that are interested in that, definitely reach out to her. If you're
Yeah.
in New York or better, but
Absolutely.
I believe she has something that goes far and wide. And that's what she does for a living. Imagine that. You can do something you love for a living. That's like, you
Yeah.
can't beat that.
Yes, yes, yes. And she don't look like she be eating a whole lot of cake.
Right, right. Yeah, she's been holding
She
on.
looks amazing.
I've been trying to, I've been trying to get her, but nobody is really interested. They is still caught. I'm a fan of the Matrix, and they are just don't want to let go of everything that we've been told, and
Yes.
it's the like the Steve, I think it's Steve and Steph. This
Hmm.
guy is going through such physical issues, and he was like, I love his what he said. The brainwashing is real, and I commented. I said the brainwashing has to be real for you to chance destroying your body because of what
Yes.
a LDL number says. And thankfully, he has, I think, got past that a little bit to his own through his own way.
Hmm.
And I just love to see people getting better.
Me
And
too.
this way of eating, it sounds unreal, but it really does allow your body to heal. And I would any ailment you have, you definitely have a shot eating carnivore to help.
All right, you guys, we're going to let you go. Thank you so much, Gerard, for being here. Hang out here. We're going to go ahead
Yeah.
and chat after we go off the live. Thank you, everybody, for being here for Carnivorous Grandma Speaks. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you guys. I'll be back again tonight at 5:30 p.m. Eastern with Alia Wells. So come back and see me, and I'll see you guys later.
I'll
Bye,
be
everybody.
watching.